Hi, it's Jeff here. Just before we start our latest Six Nations pod, just a quick word to remind you of the Harpin Guinness Pint Predictor League. Congrats to Jack Fogarty for posting a superb score of 58 for this round. That puts him in first place overall and also into first place for the best score in one round, and that's going to be pretty hard to beat. Now, even though the Six Nations is 2 rounds in, you can still win yourself some free pints by first downloading the free Fanzo app, then joining our league. Just enter the code HARPIN, that's HARPIN, and keep forecasting the scores in the remaining games in the tournament. Right, it's time to start harping on rugby. So I thought we might take this opportunity to harp on the overall concept of tactical kicking in modern day rugby. I know a lot of regular observers who go into convulsions whenever the ball goes to boot, as if it's some kind of last resort. But Mark, isn't the reality, especially at the highest level, that with the right accuracy and support from chasers, it can be a really effective strategy in its own right?
I'll put my Keno hat on here. The stats don't lie. Teams that win World Cups kick more than anybody else. New Zealand for years, with the apparent openness and willingness to run from anywhere, is a bit of a fallacy. They were just very good kickers. And usually you need at least 3 of your backline to be very good kickers. I think that is becoming more and more apparent in terms of selection at this level, because I'm a big Mac Hansen fan. I'm also a big Jordan Larmour fan. And probably Hansen is ahead of Larmour in terms of his kicking and probably his kick chase ability. Like, Larmour is a bit more electric ball in hand, but Hansen, as you can see on Saturday, as Connor said, some people thought he had a poor game. I actually thought he contributed really well. 1 or 2 mistakes, but everybody made mistakes. In a game of that intensity, you're going to make a mistake. But I think Hansen and Lowe offer so much, not just in your traditional winger. It's almost having 3 fullbacks on the pitch. You know, and I've said this before on the podcast. A lot of teams will pick one out and out winger and then 2 guys that can play fullback wing. You know, it is an interchangeable position. If one guy goes off, it's usually one of your other wingers can cover fullback. Ireland kicked more than France, and which is unusual because, as a lot of people have said online, France are very much a 3-phase. If we're not going anywhere, we'll kick it, and they'll kick it long. And they didn't do a lot of kicking. Rafael Ibanez, after the game, was interviewed, and his first comment was, "We played in the wrong areas." Ireland probably played a little bit more in the right areas, but Ireland would set up a little bit differently. They'll have a couple of phases to see if they can go, and they might play 1 or 2 more phases than teams do in their own 10-meter area. But Ireland actually, it's something I've sort of been studying for a year or two. They use the little mini rucks to set up space. They try and move the back 3 around. So if Sexton doesn't have those, let's say Sexton or Murray or Casey or whoever's at 9, or Gibson Park or Rossburn, and Rossburn does it as well with Leinster, they'll set up a couple of rucks, maybe either side of that. If you want to go football like that, if there's a center circle in the pitch, in our own half of that center circle, they will set up a couple of rucks to move the back 3 to create space. And it's vital. If you're going to kick it to somebody, you've got to have an amazing height and kick chase on the ball to make it effective. But if you're moving the back 3 around, it's to find space somewhere. So teams actually play to the edge to bring up the pendulum effect from the back 3, to bring one of the wingers into the line. And as soon as that winger's into the line, if the kick is on, teams will take it. You know, this is the chess bit of rugby. Yeah. This is the real chess bit of the kicking game. You set up it's like in American football. You set up the short passing game to set up the running game, or you set up the running game to create the passing game. It's the same thing here. So when Leinster fans might get a bit miffed that Leinster kicking too much, watch where they're kicking, who they're kicking to, and how the chase is. These are professional guys. This is not off the cuff stuff. There's always a plan behind the execution, hopefully.
Yeah, because I mean, the key word you said there is chess, because there's this phrase that goes around, kick tennis, which basically means it suggests a game where nobody's got any ideas. We've tried a couple of phases. We'll just boot it to them and see what they can do. And but what you're talking about, it's targeted. You say, you talk about moving people around the backfield and whether they've 2 or 3 back. There's a sense to it. There's a reason behind every kick, and they also back the accuracy of their own kick. They know. They said, I want to put it there, and the ball is going to go there. And plus, you're going to get the chasers with it. Like, I mean, well, what do you make of the kicking game, Connor?
I think it's really important. I mean, there's nothing I can really disagree with what Mark said there. It's important because you have that moment of, right, I took the ball and I kicked it from here to there, and now it's come back to me, but that guy who kicked back to me is still over on that right-hand side of the pitch. So I'm going to make him run a bit more, and I'm going to put it down the middle. And it's the opportunity to force mistakes. And maybe the mistake is kicking too long or kicking too short or kicking in such a way that, damn it, bloody sliced it and it's gone off the side of the boot and straight into touch. And now we've got a line out because it's gone out in the full. And that's it. You're just you're putting that pressure on a couple of guys. And even if you look back at this match, and some of the kicks that we took are ones where the net gain might only be 10 or 15 meters from where the first kick happened, but it's our line out, it's our ball, it's our opportunity, it's a set piece trying to do something new. And in the middle of it all, we've had a few lads running around getting a little bit more tired. I think it's a really important part of the game. I think anyone who questions the value of kicking isn't looking at the fact that it's the Irish Rugby Football Union, and the football element has been there the whole time. It's a sport where kicking is very, very important, and whether that's for territory, whether that's, as Mark says, to move guys around to feel out where can we create space, or as you see a couple of times in that game, ones where there's a whole acre of space over there, I'm just going to kick the ball into that and somebody will get there. And maybe somebody doesn't get there, but you get the opportunity to try and steal a line out, or it's all about putting them under pressure. And I think we did it really well at the weekend. I think the fact that the French only had 1 try against us means that the kicks we were putting in, they weren't getting the territory to have opportunity to score tries against us. I saw one person online, and I questioned the validity of his entire thread, but he pointed out, oh, look what Ross Byrne did here. Is that a crossfield kick? And it's gone out, but maybe it is a crossfield kick, but it still bounces out in such a way that there's a line out 8 meters from the French line. French aren't going to score from there a second time in one game. And the first one was fortunate in its own ways. Creating that pressure, creating those stresses, those set pieces, it's all vital.
Yeah. Maybe you're wrong, but I think that's where we scored our last try off of.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, there's the difference between what we were mainly talking about was in those midfield situations where you're trying to create an attacking situation. But then, as Connor said, you've got Ross Byrne, who does those kind of tactical kicks down at their end of the pitch, which creates scoring chances down when you're further closer to the 22. So it can have advantages in both ways. And another thing I wanted to ask Mark about was we got this stat from, you talk about stats with Keno. He added one to the WhatsApp group earlier today, was from Murray Kinsella online, which said the ball in play was 46 minutes for the game, which is a lot higher than its average for the Six Nations. And I heard people talking about Ireland's tactics with the kicking in this game. We're kicking, but they were deliberately keeping the ball on the pitch. Was that was important against France? Was it?
100%. The French line out is excellent. France have an excellent line out. They've lost a lot with Cameron Wokey being missing for a while because he's like a basketballer dunking a ball. He could just get up so quick. But Antonio's 20 odd stone, Bailly's a big lad. Willems is a unit. You got 3, even if you only move 3 guys out, these guys were knackered after 50 minutes. It's a deliberate ploy. As I said before, there's a plan. You execute the plan. You want to keep the French lads on their feet for as long as possible. And 46 minutes ball in play. There's stats. This is a great stat game. 46 minutes in play is huge for an international rugby game. At a lower league level club game, maybe not, because it's at a slower pace. But it'd be interesting to see. The other stat I'd love to see is when they have their GPSs on players, especially guys like Hugo Keenan, Lowe, Hansen, to track their meterage off the ball. You know, like coaching nowadays is a lot of your coaching is done off the ball. What are you doing off the ball to affect the game? And the kicking game is a massive part of that because it involves kick chase. So we have more athletic, probably slightly aerobically fitter forwards than the French do right now. I think that's why they have a 6-2 split the last 2 games, because they know they're bringing on actually 2 back rowers. They don't necessarily have 2 second rows to bring on like South Africa do, say, or a 6-5 guy that can play blind side or second row, like a lot of South Africans do. The 46 minutes in play was huge, but also the length of the Irish kicking game this time. There was 1 or 2 askew from McCluskey, but it was encouraging to see McCluskey kicking. It was encouraging to see Ringrose kicking. We generally have 7 kicking options in our backline now on that team that was picked today. I think that's why Larmour and Stockdale, although very good attackers, may not necessarily be first choice at this moment because their kicking game isn't up to the standard of the others. The other stat that stood out was France spent 57 seconds in our 22. And there's 2 ways you can look at that. They scored 19 points by only being in our, but one was from 85 meters the length of the pitch. The other one is our kicking game and our defensive game kept them out of our 22. It's not just our defensive game, because we missed 20 tackles. We missed 20% of our tackles. Our tackle completion rate was 80% compared to France's 92. But a lot of our tackles missed were probably in 2 runs by by Penno. He's like greased up death guy from Family Guy. You're never going to catch me. You know, the guy always seems to get away from people. You know, that's his new nickname for me as far as I'm concerned. But going back to the kicking game, France used the punt very differently to a lot of teams. Schmidt was probably the first coach that would have the scrum half in the line of 13 on the pitch, as opposed to being a sweeper. Some coaches nowadays, me personally, if it's off a set phase, I will give the scrum half license to sweep for 2 phases and then try and make a bit impact some of the line. France use Dupont very differently insofar as he's a floater. He can literally pick and choose what he wants. So you will see him making tackles around the 12-13 channel because he flies out. So Ireland's kicking game was made to stop him having an influence of the game. Like Dupont was one of the best players on the pitch, but defensively, he didn't do a hell of a lot in attack because the Ireland kicking game actually limited how he can become a counter-attacker. That's another aspect of the game that you
took him out of the play, yeah.
Took him out of the play. So you're going to manipulate. I'll keep on the manipulating the defense thing is, not only do you want to move the forwards, but you want to move those back players that they don't have an effect to counter-attack. If we kick loosely and chase badly, then France will do damage. The try that they scored wasn't necessarily from a bad kick and a bad chase. It was disjointed. France are still the best in the world, along with probably the Kiwis, at throwing caution to the wind and backing their skill set in a chaotic kick chase situation. You know, you could see that initial burst from Penno to get through. He was running past Porter. And God love Andrew Porter. He's a great defender around the ruck. Out in the 13 channel or 11 channel, not so much. You know, so that was a breakdown in play, and France are very good at that. But for the rest of the game, we did not give them a chance to attack when we kicked. And that was either through their inaccuracy or just our excellence of chase and kick.
Yeah, definitely plays a factor. All right.